Chris Watkin back again with another estate agency story where I interview a well-known estate or letting agent from the UK, talk about their journey of starting their own estate agency or being an estate agent, the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, the hopes and the dreams. And today I'm joined by Dominic Murphy, who is an estate agent, letting agent from the West Midlands in Solihull. And he's started his own estate agency back in 2013. And we're here today to talk about why he set up an agency, where things went well, where things didn't go so well, and what he's learned from that. So you out there in estate letting agency land can learn from him. Thank you for joining me today, Dominic.
No problem, and a pleasure to be here, Chris. Thank you.
Pleasure. So Solihull, posh part of Birmingham, in competition for the most gorgeous town compared to Sutton and Coldfield.
Yeah, both north and south of the city. Yeah, so we're fortunate to be operating in an area, affluent suburb, of course, of the second city. So it keeps us busy and has done pretty much from the day we launched, as you mentioned, back in 2013.
Growing up as a teenager, were you always wanted to be an estate agent? Was property in your blood?
No, I never ever wanted to be an estate agent.
What did you want to be?
I don't know. Once that whole I want to be a footballer, I want to be this, I want to be that sort of, leaves. I didn't really know, other than the fact that I wasn't terribly academic. I really struggled at school, to be fair, and had a family that was pretty much well ingrained in property.
What do you mean by well ingrained in property?
Well, uncle's industrial development, father's chartered surveyor, family owned, or owned over the years, property portfolios and whatnot. So I think I was always destined to have some form of involvement in the industry.
So a non-academic kid who didn't know what he wanted to do kind of fell into property like the rest of us?
Yes, that's pretty much what happened. Although in sort of unusual and strange circumstances, really.
What do you mean, strange circumstances?
Well, so my father was fortunate enough to retire out to Switzerland. I say retire, he moved out there nearly 30 years ago now. Come from a sort of background where parents were divorced at a young age. And I ended up working for my dad out in Switzerland as he'd opened up an agency selling chalets and apartments in a ski resort, in one particular ski resort.
What year was this?
Crikey, on my dates now, probably that would have been 2008/9.
Okay. So you would have been in your early 20s at this point?
Yeah, early 20s at that time, yes, 21.
Didn't you go to university to do a part-time degree in surveying?
I did, yes. So I think that, you felt that pressure, certainly downward pressure from parents, or certainly that, you need to get a degree, you need to do this.
Why did you go part-time?
Because I tried to, or the plan was to work for my dad at the time in his practice in Birmingham, and just do it on a sort of day release basis, if you like. Okay. I just didn't get on with it. I sort of knew very early on that it actually wasn't really where I wanted to be. And I certainly wasn't at that stage thinking of then being an estate agent.
So you, just to clarify, you were a teenager that didn't know what they wanted to do, so therefore decided that you've gone day release to your father's business, day release to uni, to doing a surveying course, an estate management course.
Yeah, estate management.
But it wasn't. But you weren't enjoying it. So your father found out that he was going to Switzerland.
Well, no, he lived in Switzerland at that stage, or at that time already. So I was involved in his sort of day-to-day business, if you like, managing a small portfolio of commercial properties. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed property. And it came at a point, I think, where this country had sort of started to that 2008, 2009 period, where I was actually at that point with King Sturge, who were later bought out by Jones Lang LaSalle. I ended up doing...
Oh, so you'd left your father's firm by this point?
I never really felt like I left because I wasn't really formally employed. I was helping my dad. He was helping me whilst I was then at uni.
Okay.
And I ended up working at King Sturge on a day release basis. And that opportunity came to an end because of the situation.
Well, in '08, things went tits up. That's a technical term.
So that opportunity whereby I thought I was going to continue my degree and fall into that type of corporate agency, if you like, commercial agency, that sort of
Petered out
overnight, you know. And at that point, my dad sort of said, well, look, you know, I could always do the handover here, over here being in Switzerland. And as a early 20 something or other, I thought, well, okay, that's an opportunity. So let's go and get stuck into it.
So what were you doing in Switzerland? Buying and selling and renting?
So I was acting, so it was estate agency. My dad saw a niche in the market to launch an English-speaking agency in a ski resort that was predominantly dominated by a couple of families that were in third and fourth generation agency. And what we did well as an agency was attracted the trust, if you like, of English buyers. And there was a real market for sort of second and third homeowners in Switzerland. Obviously, it's a beautiful place. Mountains, a fantastic place to be. And as they were buying and indeed selling out there, it was very easy to attract English custom. So I sort of very quickly learnt and understood the importance of client care or customer care. We weren't dealing in huge volumes. We're very fortunate that commission levels are high. So there was none of this, you know, rush for 30 sales a month type stuff. It was, you know, one a month actually was a lovely position to be in. And I learned very, very quickly that handling and dealing and just providing excellent customer service was incredibly important to the journey or the process of estate agency.
But what's the difference between managing a commercial unit to the thrill of the, well, I've answered my own question, the thrill of the deal of selling?
Yeah, I mean, there was no thrill involved in commercial agency so far as I experienced. Not to say that perhaps there might not have been further down the road.
I don't think there is.
Maybe not. I was being polite. Look, it was incredibly exciting. Dealt with some phenomenal people, clients that have become friends.
What did you specifically love about selling houses? Because you can give me all this client care and looking after them and all that, which is very, very important. It's so important.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about you, Dominic. What did you get? What thrill did you get?
The thrill of agreeing a deal, the thrill of...
Okay, but it's only one a month. That's...
yeah, but you're working on numbers where sales could be anything from 2 million to 10 million. You're forever dealing with the logistics of...
So you could be earning a 20, 30, 50 grand fee on some of these stuff.
Perhaps as a minimum, you know, we're a... And again, people say, what are you doing here now? But no, the fee structure was 5% up to 1 million and 3% thereafter.
What did you enjoy with the money, or was your father holding back the pennies? Did he? What was it? What was it? Well, yeah. He gave me a call.
See where this is going.
What does someone in his young 20s in Switzerland with a bit of money spend his money on?
Yeah, well, you know what, I think my dad was very good at sort of keeping him on a tight leash, and not so much of that money filtered through into my hands. But look, I was just really, really grateful for the opportunity out there to really understand how agency worked. And I think had I have not experienced that, then I would never have come back here in 2013 and set up an agency. It was clear that I loved agency work. It was clear that I really enjoyed dealing with people. And, you know, there is nothing better than taking somebody through that journey and process where they become, you know, home searcher through to homeowner.
Must have been tough for a young 20-year-old to be in working for your father in a foreign country.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the pressure. It's a strange relationship. I touched upon off camera. Parents have been divorced since I was 8 years old. I think there was always an element of wanting to try and really make things work and develop that relationship with my father.
Before then, had both your parents lived in the Birmingham area, and you a traditional spend a weekend at one and weekend at the other.
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah.
What did your father teach you as a child?
I think he instilled discipline. I think there was there was a bit of I guess accountability maybe.
Okay.
Accountability, discipline, none of that in a bad way. And I do joke about, had he have not treated me in the sort of ways that he did, I probably wouldn't have that hunger and passion and desire
Okay.
and fight to have wanted to get up and do something.
Do you think you going out to Switzerland was something to prove to him that you could do something? Because you kind
No,
of...
I think I did that because I think I was young, I was excited. I think I really, really wanted to get stuck in. I didn't know the ins and outs of the industry. I'd never sold a house before.
Are you very similar, you and your dad?
In some ways, I think we're very similar, but in others not.
Quite often, though, if you have two alpha males, especially entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
they can rub each other up the wrong way.
Yeah, and I think looking back on it, I think there are lessons that both of us could have learned by, if we were to talk now about that relationship all those years ago, would we have entered it in a different way? Maybe, maybe not.
Was it the relationship with your father that meant you came back to the UK?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so we essentially, there was only so many times, I could be sacked, or I could be told that it was his way or the highway. And in the end, that all came to an end back in sort of September 2013.
How did you feel about that?
I was really disappointed. I was angry. I was upset. All of the emotions that you'd expect.
Because you've got, you're not talking about someone who's your boss. You're talking about someone who's your dad as well.
No, absolutely, yeah. No, it's really difficult. Honestly, that it has been phenomenally difficult. But I've had some fantastic support, and as I touched upon before, clients back in Switzerland that have become friends and remained friends over this entire period.
At the time, did you leave on good terms with your dad?
They weren't good terms. I think they were. He was proving a point. I think this whole my way or the highway. Off you go. You're going to go and amount to nothing. You go and you had every opportunity under the sun, under my guidance, and if you don't do things my way, then there's no room for you here.
I mean, we're obviously going to come on to it later because you are a very successful estate agent. Do you think he actually gifted you something that probably at the time felt awful, but in reality put a fire in your belly? That probably was there, but it just needed igniting.
Yeah, I do. I think that there are many other ways he could have treated me for us to still actually be a fantastic team and for all of this to have never have happened. But without doubt, there are some really real hidden lessons and there's an education in there for sure that I was on the receiving end of, even if I probably wasn't so aware of it at the time.
You still got your mum?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mum.
She live in the Birmingham area?
She lives locally, yeah, so she's in Solihull.
What did you learn from your mum?
My mum's a real warrior, a real battler. She's a real, she's her parents are Polish immigrants, come across to the UK, way back when. Mm-hmm. My mum's now, probably shouldn't say this, but approaching 70. She still works really hard to this day. And I think she instilled in got two sisters, Hannah and Kate, a real, as well as giving us fantastic support, she's really been there for us all and sort of made us very much aware that anything's possible. You sort of put your mind to it, and if you do a good job, the rewards will come and follow. Yeah.
By the sounds of it, you had a strange upbringing, but the gifts that you were given,
sure,
have created the man that you are now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So back to UK 2013. Mm-hmm. I'm going to prove something different.
What are we going to do? All I know, we'll be an estate agent.
So you set up your own estate agency by yourself?
I think it was, so September 2013 I was back. I think both myself and a school friend at the time, or who I had been to school with, obviously, because we were no longer at school, where we bumped into each other in a bar, as you do, and I was venting my frustrations about general life, what I'd learned over in Switzerland. And actually, most interestingly is during that sort of last 12 months of being in Switzerland, I bought a house locally in Solihull. And I couldn't believe that I was spending my weekends out viewing. And there just being like a real lack of care, attention, knowledge, doors just being opened, people just sitting on sofas and saying, and I'm there thinking, God, I do your job in, albeit another country, and okay, I'm not asking for anybody to pick me up from the airport, but I am expecting you to know a little bit about the house that you're showing me, and for there to just be this, I just hold the keys type attitude, I think is really, really
Here's the
important.
lounge.
Oh, just have the answers to the questions that I think are expected.
So you set up your own estate agency with the passion that you think it could be done better. What, with this old school friend?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So Chris and myself, we set the business up. I think we then, we ran it from our respective living rooms and kitchen tables, back when that was frowned upon by the competitors, and we just hustled. I don't want that to sound like a bit of a cliche, but we just got out there. I was incredibly fortunate to have a really strong family network, if you like, locally, and then social and sort of school network. So the business that the golf club and the rugby club and the inner circle, if you like, was able to give us in that first 12, 18, 2 years really, 18 months, 24 months time, was fantastic. And I think had we have not had that support, there was a little bit of a get up and go in us. We didn't dress like estate agents. We weren't in shiny suits and ties and aftershave squirted just before we get through the front door. And we just approached things in a very sort of, look, you're struggling to sell with the current agent. And most of our stock in those early days did come from...
Well, 13, 14, the market was okay, but it wasn't on fire.
It wasn't on fire, but then I think it wasn't long after that before it did catch fire.
Yes. So we had the, yeah.
So I think, 13, you put into perspective now, the houses that were trading on the road that we first opened on a road called Yoxall Road, back in 2013, 14, they were at sort of, 200 if they needed work doing to it, 250 if they were in good nick, anywhere in between. Those houses now are 350 to 400, and some are topping out at 450. So we've seen a massive boom and rise in the market and pace in the market over that period of time, which of course has been fantastic for us and helped us massively.
What did you do well in that first year?
What we did well was not let anything slip through the net. I think we were so attentive to the local market, to the hunger and need and the burn. At the end of the day, you're opening up a business, you've got relatively little to no cash reserves in the pot, and you know that the only way to keep this thing going is to find properties, sell properties, and get them through and get the money into the bank. And that does really powerful and crazy things to you. It does put you completely and utterly out your comfort zone, but it does make you do the stuff that you need to do. So we were relentless in our sort of quest for gaining business. Social media was around then, not very well utilised. And in fact, it wasn't that long ago where a memory had popped up from, I think, 8 or so years ago, where actually a friend of mine had commented something along the lines of, do you think you're really going to sell property on the internet, using Facebook? And I screenshotted it and sent it to him, and we did have a good chuckle. So it's amazing how that again has then led on to really support and help proactive agents. So the
Hungry for the business.
Hunger for the business, when you have
door knocking and all that.
Absolutely, and door knocking gets a bad rep, I think. But I think I think you can knock a door without begging for business.
Of course you can.
And I think that's the difference. Okay. I think if you're...
Some people would disagree with you on that one. Our mutual friend Chris Arnold, but we'll have to agree to disagree with that one, Chris.
Yeah, I think I'm sure Chris will watch this, but I think that you can knock a door.
It's all about the intent and what you say. It's not. Don't blame the method. Blame the message.
No, and don't start banging on doors and your opening line be slagging off the agent that's failing to sell the house.
Indeed, I agree.
And that might not be an instruction you win today, but hey, if it's pitched that badly and the agent isn't doing the work meant to, it will come back round.
What would you do in hindsight differently in those first formative years?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd have done anything. I think what I would have done actually is I'd have Yoxall Road that I referenced earlier on. It's a side road, very much a side road. It's in a densely populated residential area, but the people that know it are only really the people that live off the immediate roads. It's not a real road. That makes sense. Sorry if it doesn't. But I think what I would have done is actually gone for a prime pitch. I would have absolutely categorically have put DM&Co onto a main road back then with high visibility.
You really think it'd make a difference?
I think it would have made a difference, yes.
Okay.
And I think that because I reference it to our sort of second office, if you like. So we've got, or we have had now for the last 4-5 years maybe, an office in Dorridge, which is another suburb. It's only 3 miles away from our other office. But there is absolutely no way that we would have had the traction and success that we have had over the last 4 years from that office had we have not had it. I know that because for the previous 4 years we failed to generate any business there. But what made that really different, Chris, was the fact that this office isn't just a standard high street office tucked in between a number of shops. It sits sort of loud and proud, if you like, outside the main Sainsbury's. So there is no way that anybody that lives in that small village of not seeing or knowing that you're actually the only estate agent in the area.
Okay, we'll come back to Dorridge in a second. So you and Chris Rapp were running your estate agency in 15 or 16.
Yeah.
Yep, then Chris left in 17.
Yeah, it was 17, 18. I sort of look at my journey, if you like, in ownership of DM&Co. I sort of split it in two. There was this first 4 years and then the last 4 years. Chris was a real part of that journey. He fell in love. His girlfriend at the time, they're now married, they've got a young family. We still speak. But it was impossible really for him to maintain a relationship, south of the M25 when we were up in Solihull. So that created a bit of friction between the two of us over that sort of 12-month period where we had to make a decision on how we sorted the business out.
So it wasn't a case that you fell out. The simple fact is that Chris fell in love.
Yeah.
He was 100 miles south.
And look, yeah, I couldn't blame him. And I kept saying to him, look, I don't want one day to have a phone call where you've ended up having a crash on the motorway because you've fallen asleep, busting your
He wasn't going backwards and forwards every day, was he?
Not every day, but it was becoming more frequent than not, which again, I can't blame him for. And yeah, I have.
So you parted ways in a good way in 17,
yeah,
18,
sure.
but then you went and found another business partner.
Yeah, so yeah, back then I was introduced to another party through mutual friends. They were sort of prolific, if you like, landlords. So had great portfolios of properties. I had I say at that stage, probably a fledgling sales business, if you like. I think a fair critique of it would be that, I had a business. There was myself and a handful of people in it. Less than 6, maybe 7. And we weren't doing a lot of business, annual revenues back then, probably 200 grand. And I was really, my nose was a bit put out of joint in that I didn't really know what direction I wanted to take at that stage. I really didn't know if I wanted to be in the industry. I was really sort of thinking, crikey, how do we patch that relationship up with the old man and get back out to Switzerland in some way, shape or form? I had a development project that was ongoing at the time that I was involved in with a previous client from Switzerland. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So this seemed like a really decent offering in that, I...
Did they come to you?
Yeah, they came to me via a third party, yeah. So there was
And offered what?
Well, they just sort of said, well, look, there's 3 of us, there's you. And they've got a huge lettings portfolio. I didn't do any lettings. So it seemed like a nice fit. And so they came in and it was evident that with the level of commitments and business interests that they had elsewhere, that it needed more day-to-day management from their side than just simply all coming together. So, it wasn't long after all that, probably, 12 to 18 months, where things started to get a bit, well, I started to question really how, with all the effort that was going in on the sales side, and don't get me wrong, there was fantastic support from these guys, it just never seemed to work. So we came to an agreement to go our separate ways. Actually, it wasn't long before COVID, or as COVID struck.
But they say it's easier to get out of a marriage than a business relationship. Do you think, what am I trying to say, is that going into business with someone needs to be done with your eyes open and finding out what the motivation is?
Yeah, it does. I think one of my downsides is certainly that I'm very trusting. I'm very trusting of people, and I think I try to find the very good in everybody in every situation. And actually, when things start to turn sour or don't seem to be quite as right as they should be, I'm still the guy there trying to find the good in that bad situation. So I think that yes, you have to go in with your eyes open. I think what I've really learnt through the last 8 years of hard work and graft and slog and sweat and tears and all of that is that every day's a learning day. There isn't a day that goes by where you don't learn about something. I think that I could certainly add value to other businesses. I think that there is a bit of a burning desire in me whereby I would like to help probably me of 5 years ago, me of 10 years ago, I think there are certainly agents that are revenuing £2 to £500,000 and don't quite know
How to kick on.
Mm-hmm. I think from the mistakes I've made and
do you, again, I know you had that awful thing with your father, but do you think you learnt a lot from the relationship with this big landlord and getting into bed and then getting out of bed? Do you think you learnt a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we both learned something from that. I think that, look, he's a really well-respected, or they are a really well-respected group of guys. We still live in the same area. We still occasionally see one another and speak to one another. There's no ill feeling.
Just didn't work out.
It just didn't work out.
Anyway, let's move on.
Sure.
So just before lockdown,
Yeah.
you decided to set up a premium brand in your estate agency.
Yeah, so actually, well, no, I mean, this was 2019. So 2019, I launched DM&Co Premium.
Okay. I mean, Solihull is a pretty premium market anyway.
Yeah.
So what's up a quartile in Solihull?
So for me, it was really important that, so again, through my strength of network and relationships through the golf club, the rugby club, et cetera, I was forever having friends come up to me and say, look, Murph, I'd love you to sell my house, but you've got an office on the Oxford Road, which is and actually, I think you're the right agent, but I don't think you look right. Fantastic, great, thank you.
Yeah, because it's very hard. It's very hard to sell. It's very hard to attract people with the same branding, with a little terraced house, a family house, and then a big whopper.
Sure. Yeah. Impossible. So for me, I knew pretty much from day one really that I wanted to get back into that sort of premium market.
Yes.
I think that the business had to be built, a brand had to start to become recognised locally, and I felt the timing was right in 2019.
Okay.
I was entering into conversations with a handful of people, but I sort of thought, right, actually, if these guys are going to take their properties to market pretty much simultaneously, then there's a real opportunity here to launch the brand with a bang, and it winds me up to this day, the amount of agents that there are out there, and certainly in the neck of the woods that we operate in, that they just create a brand, and then the next thing you know, they're listing 400 grand houses, 600 grand houses, or there's no, it doesn't look like they're doing anything different to what they're doing under their normal brand, other than that they've called it something else.
Yeah. What did you call yours?
DM&Co Premium.
Premium. I mean, there's like a brand bucket. You could go signature as one.
Signature. There's
country, fine,
exclusive,
heritage.
private.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all.
Have you done a different colour?
Yeah, we have.
What
But I
colour?
think we have to. It's
What
black.
colour have you got? Black.
We've gone black.
Well, let me guess. A little bit of white and gold in there as well.
No gold.
No.
No gold. No, God, no. But it was important
pulling
to
your
have.
leg.
No, I know. But it was important to have something that stood out and was different.
Yeah.
And it goes one step further than that, in that you have to have a premium team then, because you can't expect your clients to call into the same office, have the phone answered by the same person,
Yeah.
to then to be thrown across departments, etc., etc. So I really, really, really focused on developing and building, and at that time it was very much around me. So the Emeco Premium became my part of the business, if you like, that had my sole focus, until I needed support, until I needed help. I'm really lucky to have my partner working in the business. She, one day I needed support, I needed help, I needed viewings doing in the business, and since then, yeah, she's been sort of fully.
What did she do
employed.
before?
She was in the automotive industry, so she worked in a very sort of fiercely male-dominant industry, as accounts management and that sort of stuff.
And now you've got her into a estate agency.
Got her into an estate agency. She certainly found a calling in life. She absolutely loves it.
Oh.
Absolutely loves it. And actually, it's important not only because she's my partner, but this is so true of everything in agency, in that it is all about the people.
What year did she join you?
She joined about 2020.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
she's
just
been
after.
in. She's been in and at it certainly a good 2 years now.
How was COVID for you?
Horrendous, terrible, scary. It was at a time where, as I mentioned, myself and previous partners were going through the buyout, if you like. So.
Did you buy another agency whilst you were buying out?
Yeah, well, you know what people say, did we buy? I think the fairest thing to say is that we took over their liabilities. There was an exchange of cash, so yes, there was some money that.
What did you buy, lettings or an estate agency?
No, we bought an estate agency that had a good reputation, long established in trading. 2 partners in it. One was retired, or one wanted to retire. The other one was sort of the driving force of the business, if you like. And that was a really difficult moment. I think that the timing of it was terrible.
Why did you buy into it?
Because we were outgrowing our office on Yoxall Road.
Okay.
I thought there was a good opportunity there to relocate Yoxall Road onto the High Street. High Street, it's the main A34, so not so much of a high street, but it was a well-positioned office. And I thought really that we could rebrand it and get stuck into it and move things forward. It just became I think it just really suffered from the world's emotions at that time. Very difficult for somebody that had been running their own business to then be coming into work for a competitor, or a competitor at the time. Very difficult for their staff. In fact, all of their staff took voluntary redundancy. So there wasn't a wanton need from, if it's fair to say, that side to make things work. And I don't actually think it was for them to make it work. But it was just a difficult period, really difficult period. And actually, we only ended up being there for about 9 months. Very difficult to quantify whether business was generated out of that.
Had you still got your
Dorridge, still got the Dorridge office.
What about the original office? You still got that?
So we did let that office go in order to relocate.
Okay, but you were only at the new place for 9 months. What did you then do?
So whilst we were there, I was going through securing what would have become, or what has become, the head office for Emeco. So it's part of an industrial estate. It's a very different setup to your standard high street estate agencies. I've got 1,500 or so square feet, 20 to 25 people at any one time that are in there, and it was always an idea that I wanted to put everybody under one roof to a certain degree, and then have these little sort of sales offices that had prime prime locations.
So do you still have a prime location in Solihull?
We don't at the moment, no.
Surely that's going to affect your premium brand, or in fact your estate agency brand?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't to date. And I know we have this conversation on and off camera about, is there a need to have high street offices? Is there a need for this presence?
I don't think there is. If you don't mind me saying, your social media presence is one of the best in the country.
Well, I thank you for that. But I always, in these conversations, I always find myself fighting with you on the fact that I do believe that I believe that the business needs eyes on it. And that doesn't necessarily just mean have a fantastic social media presence.
It's all about the mix. It's like the marketing mix. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket with content marketing. The job of an estate agent is to get your message in front of the eyeballs of where the eyeballs are.
Yeah.
And be that high street, be that social media, be that printed media, be that newspapers.
Getting that balance right.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm passionate about content marketing, but I'd certainly not recommend anyone put 100% in content marketing.
Sure.
So it hasn't affected you. So what's it done bringing everyone together, apart from the little satellite office in Dulwich?
It's really, really improved the way that the business is operating.
But hold on, you were already only in 2 locations anyway.
Okay, so this is the explosive part of the business, so over what has COVID done, what has the market done, we've gone from 4 years ago, 7, 8 people in the business, 6, 7 people really. We're now sat at 35 people. We've, revenue has gone from sub 200k to just below 2 million. That level of growth over such a short period of time has caused lots of pain and strain on the business. It's taught me a hell of a lot, but ultimately putting people, and this is why, again, I fight myself about high street presence, about, the agents in our neck of the woods were all, laughing hysterically at the fact that we relocated to essentially an industrial estate. And I think it would be really difficult to set up an estate agency today and it just be from an industrial estate. So I think we've transitioned to a location whereby we've got all of our guys and girls under one roof, albeit that the Dulwich office is a sales satellite. And it's enabled people to work really well together. So the cross-selling between the business. So we're now, the business's revenue streams have diversified, if you like.
Because you've got Land and New Homes Department now.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is that we have sales, be it Solihull or Dulwich. We have Land and New Homes, we have premium sales, we have lettings and property management. So all of that operating with under one roof. We've got an admin department, we've got a media team. I was outsourcing media for 2 years, and it was costing me thousands of pounds. It was always a month, and it was always a goal to bring media into the business. I say to lots of people about the fact that we're estate agents. Well, I don't think we are estate agents. I think that we become estate agents by default, because the product that we sell is a house. Actually, we're marketeers
That sell houses.
that sell houses.
There you go. Gary V all over.
And all of our effort is, how do we take this thing, this house, this object, and how do we put it in front of as many eyeballs as possible and make sure that at every opportunity we are doing something that is different to your run-of-the-mill estate agencies. And I think that's what we've done really, really well,
Well, the figures
over the
prove
last
it.
couple of years.
What's the future for Dominic Murphy?
The future for myself, I'm definitely not going anywhere. Have no plans to go anywhere. DM & Co at the moment, as I've said, has got...
I mean, you are, if you don't mind me saying, you're a baby at 36.
Oh yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm really.
You really are.
Yeah. No, I'm excited.
I mean, I'm old enough to be your dad, which is weird, isn't it? You must have been a tough paper out there.
It was a tough background. You've got no idea. All that flying. It's the altitude.
All right.
But no, that's seriously. I've got massive sort of ideas and goals that I want to achieve in this business.
Okay.
We have multiple revenue streams now, so now it's about focusing on those revenue streams. How do we improve them? How do we make the business as a whole more efficient? How do we improve our footprint on the local market?
Yeah, because a lot of people in your position might go and say, right, I want, you know, the ego of lots of offices around. You've almost centralised it. I mean, I don't know what market share you've got in Solihull. Would you know? Are you happy to say?
Yeah, our market share. I mean, this is also one of the most crippling parts of estate agency that many don't see, is that there are that many competitive agents. If you were to take a right move pie chart, for instance, those dreaded pie charts, I think they can be used well, but they let themselves down over their level of manipulation. That's my negative on the pie chart. However, yeah, market share is sub 5%.
Which means 95% of people aren't choosing you.
Absolutely.
And I tell you here and now, boys and girls in estate agency land, it's a damn sight easier to go from 5% to 6% than it is from 0 to 1% in a new town.
Yeah, and I think that don't hold me to this, but in the postcodes that we cover, there was something like 74 or 75 active agents.
And again, it's a good town with some good competition. So
there was strong independent competition. Independents that have sort of fallen by the wayside now have been taken over by the corporates. So the opportunity, and that swings me back to the sort of premium brand, if you like, that was absolutely sewn up by John Shepherd, if you're aware of the John Shepherd brand. John, I know well. John has helped me over the last couple of years. And I often pick up the phone for a bit of advice from him. And it was just crying out for somebody then to take over that market. And I'm really, you know, I make no holds barred. I'm really proud of the fact that we do now sell more houses at £1 million plus than any other local agent.
Thank you for your time today, Dominic. You've been an absolute star. And I hope you out there in estate agency land have learned lots from him. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.